Welcome to episode 388 of the DFO Rundown, as always, presented by Bet365. Conference Finals, NBA, NHL, they're all 3 games to 1. Soon the Stanley Cup. Get in on the games at Bet365. I'm Jason Gregor. We welcome in Frank Seravalli. We're going to talk playoffs a little bit later in the pod, but we're going to start with, of course, the what's going to be trade targets. And there's lots of rumblings, Frank. There's lots of names out there. You throw in some free agents and then some trades that some pretty spicy names as you put out your first trade targets board. And a name, I want to start with a name that's being talked about for months now in JJ Peterka. And this one, is it fair to say this is one that's going to be initiated more by the player than the team?
I think that's probably fair. Like, I think if you're looking at this and you're saying, hey, the Buffalo Sabres are trying to end a 14-year playoff drought, why on earth would they have any designs on trading a 23-year-old who is a top-line player already and is touching 70 points? The answer is they're really not. But look, I think this is a classic change of scenery moment. And I think there's a whole bunch of players on this Sabres roster, well more than a quarter, that aren't necessarily thrilled with, how things have gone. And I don't know if it's entirely fair to put him in that category, but I think there's been enough sort of rumblings to think that, hey, this is also a guy who's going to need a massive new contract as a pending RFA. And then you kind of think, all right, what's the next iteration of that conversation? And it's, well, if you don't get a deal done by July 1st and you haven't traded him, well, then he's fodder for an offer sheet. So I think there's probably going to be some trepidation for Buffalo at some point because of a lot of the factors that we just talked about. And that makes for a very interesting summer. Look, Kevyn Adams has already been making a ton of calls. He has signaled to teams that he is open to shaking things up, and I think he has to be. How deep does that go? Who exactly does that include? Like, are we in a spot where we could be talking about an Owen Power potentially being on the move? Are we in a spot where we could be talking about an Alex Tuck or a Matthias Samuelsson, or pick any one of these number of supposed foundational core players? I think Buffalo is without a doubt one of the teams of the offseason.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see what they do. Peterka is a really skilled player, and I look and, man, I think trading him at this stage is one where it's going to be hard to end up winning that trade. That's always my concern for an organization when you trade a guy like that, because you know what? Getting you draft picks does nothing for the Buffalo Sabres. Absolutely nothing. If I'm trading JJ Peterka, I got to get an even player in return. There's another name on your list, Marco Rossi. Is that a fair trade straight up 1-for-1? They're 2 different players. They both deserve a raise. I don't know, but it's going to be one where if you're Kevyn Adams and you are going to move Peterka, you got to be smart, because I think this is a guy, Frank, whose next 5 years are going to look a lot better than what we've seen thus far.
Okay, so let's take a different approach to that conversation. What if you have to trade him?
Because he's asking for a trade?
Yeah, or what if he just is, hey, I'm not a willing participant in an extension conversation. I'm just spitballing.
Yeah. Well, I guess in that one, maybe you got to dig your feet in. Because to just give him away because he doesn't want to sign an extension is like, hey, man, I'll look to trade you, but I got to do what's best for the organization, not what's best for JJ Peterka. That's Kevyn Adams' main focus. It has to be, right? That's why you're the GM. It's hard, but you can't
put a gun to a player's head and say you have to sign here. It doesn't have to put pen to paper.
Okay, so what if we get to? Are you telling me he would sit out a whole season?
No, I'm not making that declaration at all. I'm gaming it out with you, because you say it's easy to dig in and be the GM and make hard decisions. It's a 2-party conversation. It's not
I never said it was easy. Yeah. I said it's a hard decision, but it's one that, and I look and I've said this before, like I feel the lack of inexperience in management in Buffalo has been a problem. And so now this is where an experienced GM, Frank, has probably been through this situation before, that we're not going to sign in July 1st. And he's like, okay, well, I'll play patient game. Whereas another GM, maybe he's like, oh God, I don't want to lose them. So now I got to move them. It's a fine line. I get it. But I think having experience as a GM can help you in a situation like this.
I agree. And I would say, here's the other fun part of the conversation. Probably not so fun for Buffalo, which is, let's assume all those things happen and you've now come around to the idea that, hey, this is probably in our best interest to make the trade. How do you do it and do it in a way that makes your team more competitive to end this drought? Meaning you don't want futures back. You want players. Does it now become even more difficult to accomplish?
It does. Well, especially because it's not just JJ Peterka, man. You also have another guy, Bowen Byram from the Buffalo Sabres. So the Buffalo Sabres got what, 2 guys in your top 4? Usually you'd be doing cartwheels, Frank, if you have 2 of the top 4, but not when it comes to trade targets. That's not ideal.
I had a ton of fans tweeting me on social media, someone step up and make a package to land both of these players. I'm like, how?
Yeah.
What are you giving up? What are you enticing the Sabres with to get 2 23-year-olds, a top line winger, and a top 4 defenseman with top pair ability or potential? How are you going to get your hands on those guys?
Now, what about, because you have him in your top 5 as well, like Rossi for Peterka. It's a center to a winger, I know. Rossi had 60 points in the regular season. Peterka had 51. And I just, now different positions, different styles. I get all that. But like Bill Guerin, man, that guy, he's never afraid to make a deal. And we've seen like if I'm trading Peterka for Rossi, now I know both are RFA, so it might not solve your problem. But in the case of Peterka, it sounds like he wants a change of address. It's not just about money. So maybe that becomes a possibility because, hey, I'm trying to think of trades where you had kind of equal players. Remember Hossa, Heatley? That was like a trade, 2 young guys, both really productive, obviously at a higher level than these 2. But what would you have any appetite either way for a Rossi Peterka trade?
I could see something like that making sense. I mean, it probably would be the best of what the Sabres could get their hands on in the here and now. And why?
Maybe even
the next question is, well, probably not. Like, I think Mini could probably think about the last, and he was a little bit older, but think about the last RFA that they had that they decided, hey, we're not going to sign this guy. That was Kevin Fiala. And the trade was a first and Brock Faber. You could probably do a first and a prospect.
True, but are you going to get Brock Faber again?
Probably not, but
yeah.
I mean, anyone, if Bill Guerin's calling, you should probably hang up in that case if he's looking for a first and a prospect, because the first thing you're asking yourself is, have we evaluated this player properly, this prospect?
Yes.
But that said, when it initially came out of your mouth, I kind of was like, I don't know that makes sense for Buffalo to get an undersized center. But I'm saying this totally tongue in cheek. Maybe if you've got Tage Thompson and Marco Rossi, that they just balance each other out to be 6'2". I don't know. Does that happen? Does that work like that? I don't think so. But maybe if you have someone that has massive size like Thompson, that it makes you a little bit easier to add in a guy that doesn't.
Yeah, like I think with Rossi, if you have 2 bigger wingers, it alleviates it a little bit. Obviously, we saw him, he got demoted in the playoffs. What did he play? Like 11 minutes a night. At times he was on their 4th line.
4C, yeah.
He still did get 2 goals in the series, which isn't awful overall. But a younger guy. It's just I look at some of these trades, and the Fiala one is a great example of everybody's. Oh yeah, you give away a good player, but now if there's another Brock Faber out there, there are some, but they're not just growing on trees. So that's obviously a best case scenario for a trade like Minnesota. But it is interesting to see some of the names on there. The one that really jumps out to me because, you look at the organization and Rasmus Andersson in Calgary, good player. I think there'd be a good market for him. He's got a really good contract for the final year, Frank, at 4.5 mil, right? Like that's excellent value. And you're the Flames. You're a few years away from your new arena coming, and he's not technically eligible to sign an extension until July 1st. So my question is, the fact that you have him on there, are you hearing that an extension is unlikely?
I just think it's going to be at a term and price that Calgary probably isn't going to love. And I think the biggest issue that Calgary has in engaging in those types of conversations is not that they don't like Rasmus Andersson or aren't interested in going there. It's just that what will Rasmus Andersson look like at the back end of that term? Where will that be in relationship with the Flames and the roster that they're building? Like they're looking for guys in the 21 to 25-year-old range. Rasmus Andersson has one more year left on his deal, and he's a guy that is already 28. He turns 29 in October. He'll be 30 in the October of the first year of his next deal. Are you signing him to a 7 or 8 year deal that takes him to 38? I'm personally not, but I don't know exactly yet what the read is for Calgary, but I think there's a realization from both sides that this might not work. And here's the other thing Calgary has learned, and Craig Conroy in his tenure already, even though it's not a very long one, sometimes not signing these guys is the best thing you can do. Look at Elias Lindholm. They had 8 times 8.5 on the table. The fact that he said no and wanted out is an absolute blessing in the end.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's funny because I think they learned from the fact that maybe they didn't act quick enough in extension offers for Gaudreau and Tkachuk, and that caused them to move. And then they decided, okay, we're not going to let that happen again. They went to Lindholm, and you're right, Frank. Like that contract offer, oh my God! Like I don't even think Boston likes the deal they got. So,
and that's way less.
Yes, so it is a huge blessing, no question. Now Anderson's 28. So, his new deal would start. He's 29, 30.
No, he turns 29 this October. He'll be 30 in the year one in
starts,
October of the first year. It takes him to 38. I don't like.
You think he's going to get an 8-year? Well, if it's not Calgary, well, I guess if he gets traded, maybe. But see, I agree with you. Term, Frank, for lots of these players, I like Rasmus Andersson, and I will repeat it every time. Managers and players get 5-year max term after 28. It helps both sides. It helps everybody. I know now it doesn't help the players who aren't going to age well, but it does help the overall collective of the players because it'd be less money in dead cap space. Do it, NHL, new CBA. Do it.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that.
They should, though. Who is your most now? You have Erik Karlsson on that list. How much would they have to retain to trade Karlsson? They'd be in Pittsburgh.
I'm spitballing, but I would say if you could get Karlsson down to the 7 to 7.5 range, I think there would be some interest. Would you? So he had 53 points last year on the back end, right shot guy. If health is there, you're still not doing it for 2 years at 7 or 7.5.
Dude, when I watch Erik Karlsson, until he shows me he has any commitment to wanting to play defense, I don't care if I don't care what offense he's bringing. Like I look in the playoffs, it's funny. People are all like, "Oh, Evan Bouchard." You know what? Jays makes me look at Evan Bouchard in the playoffs when it matters. No Matthias Ekholm. Evan Bouchard still producing points, but he's not getting scored on. Right? He's showing a commitment to play defense. When was the last time Karlsson showed you that? That's my concern.
Well, okay, so I can't be a hypocrite here because I've said this before, and I'll stick with my line, which is we need to stop thinking about what players don't do well and harness what they do well. And he has an exceptional all-world ability to produce points and run a power play. If you create the proper expectations, we know Erik Karlsson is not going to defend. He's never going to defend. So you're saying show a commitment to something he's never done in his career. That's like saying, Frank, be a marathon runner. I'm not capable of it. So like to think that I would train and all of a sudden become one is lunacy. The reason Erik Karlsson doesn't work in Pittsburgh is because the rest of their team doesn't defend their defense core. And then oddly enough, they traded away their best defender in Marcus Pettersson. So they already had Chris Letang. It was like adding a second thumb to your right hand. Why?
I agree.
They didn't need Karlsson, but if you took Karlsson and said, all right, we don't really need you to defend because we're going to put you with the next version of Mark Mathot who can defend, and we're going to say, dude, go have a day at the other end of the ice. You don't think that can work for 2 years at $7 million? Like I saw him at Four Nations Faceoff and I was like, holy shit, this guy's back. Maybe he never left.
Yeah, no, he's an excellent skater. I don't discount that. So I guess I look at it. Do you think so? I guess it's your point is valid about look at what players do. But if you're taking Erik Karlsson, is your goal? It depends, I guess, what the team is. Where's your goal? To make the playoffs? Well, he'll help you make the playoffs. Do you think he can help you win in the playoffs? That's the question. Now, we haven't seen him in the postseason.
Got to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final, double OT against the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2017. I was in the building.
That's 9 years ago.
Okay, but 2 years ago, he had a 100-point season. So,
right.
Like, I think if, again, you're asking in the abstract, give me the team, give me the roster, and give me who the other 5 defensemen are going to be before I can answer you whether or not they can win.
Yeah, well, that's fair. So then I look at it. Now, he has a no movement clause, so I don't see him getting dealt to a non-playoff contender. So then you go through the playoff teams, right? Florida, no. Carolina, they actually need, like, Carolina might be a team, actually, because I got, you play him with Jacob Slavin if you have to. Jacob Slavin's so good defensively, it might not matter.
I don't think they need him because they've got Shane Gostisbehere.
Fair point. So Toronto, no, right? I don't think that's what they need. I would look at.
I actually do think they need a power play quarterback because they have elite offensive talent, and Morgan Riley's not a QB. And the question is, who do you pair him with? Who can play defense? Do you put him with Jake McCabe? Do you put him with? I'll pick a guy. Do you put him with Simone Benoit? Simone Benoit could be that guy. I don't think Toronto's outlandish. I really don't.
So, okay, how about for fun? Because you have him on your list. Would you trade Morgan Riley for Erik Karlsson?
I would. I want to get off of Morgan Riley's contract in the worst way.
Okay. And then how much retention? Taking $3 million? Karlsson?
No, I think well, there's a significant disparity between term and dollars remaining. And in fact, I think a lot of Karlsson's deal was front loaded and already paid. So in real cash, I'm just spitballing off the top of my head. I don't have the contract in front of me, but I think that's the case, that you'd probably need to, I don't know if you'd have to take on the deal in full to make it happen.
Yeah, because Karlsson, well, he's got 2 years left, and his cap hit is $10 million. And now I'm looking at what his cash is.
His cash remaining is $16.5 million, and his cap hit is 20.
Yeah.
So yes, there's a cash under cap, and you're dealing with a lot left on Riley's deal. No.
Oh, yeah.
Riley's got 5 more years at 6, 12, 18, 24, $32 million in cash.
No, it's just like Karlsson might fit. I just, man, I'm just leery of it. That's all.
Okay.
I'd be
But
leery
that's
of it. Like,
so okay, that's like not a wild thing, right? What
I could see
about
why Pittsburgh. I agree with you. Pittsburgh, it never made sense, and sadly, Frank, that's the second time Dubas that came to an organization. One of his first moves did make sense. John Tavares, Erik Karlsson.
what about again, purely spitballing, but and I don't know, I don't think they could even make the money work, but what about Dallas?
No, I don't think Dallas needs him, man. They
They
got
do.
Harley. They got Harley and Heiskanen. They got more than
But the
like
right
gifted.
side of their defense is not complete. I'll say
No,
that.
that's valid, but I don't think they've got Harley's really good offensively. Heiskanen, I think, is fine offensively. So,
What about St. Louis?
well, Kruger's out, but they got Broberg. They like Cam Fowler was unreal for the Blues. So I'd be surprised where they're at if that would make sense for them. They got a boatload of D-men, right?
I'm just thinking of teams but St. Louis needs energy on their back end.
Well, like I don't mind their back end actually. Broberg, Parayko,
Old
Cam Fowler. Yeah, Cam Fowler looked great, but Karlsson's not like you're not getting younger if you're bringing in Karlsson.
No, but
He's
he
actually
skates
older.
well and he moves the puck.
Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like I would love to see his head coach him though. That would be fantastic.
What about going back to Ottawa? Still has a house there?
Yeah, I know that. I'm not a huge believer in rekindling the flame. I don't find it works very often. There's the odd ones that do, but yeah. And the other thing is I don't know. Is he the guy I want as my leader in my room? Right? Because he would come in. He's a big personality. In a team that's not overly old, right? So it's stuff like Florida would actually be a really good fit when you look at everything their organization does.
I don't think they need him though.
No, I agree with you. They
can
don't
do what he wants. What
about Tampa Bay?
I mean, how much worse is your power play if Hedman's running it?
Yeah, well, no, I agree with you. Like, I don't think they need him, but there's always been the talk that him and Hedman want to play together. And, Tampa's never afraid to make moves, man. So, funny enough, Frank, who actually could use him is I don't think there's enough creativity on the back end in Vegas.
Well, they have enough guys that could defend too.
Yeah, they do. And they got they're huge on the back end.
And his big wish list, if he's going to waive, is to go to a place where he has an authentic chance to win. It's not going to be like, hey, come to quarterback the Flyers power play. Like, that's not his thought process.
No, like Vegas
he's
actually
already doing that in Pittsburgh.
I could see a lot of reasons why Vegas might make sense.
Yeah, I just think they have probably their eye on other shiny toys.
No, I think they want to. I think they want to.
And they're a team that showed a ton of age in the postseason.
Yes, they need a scoring forward for sure.
Yeah.
And they need a little bit more speed up front, no question. But I think they've gone with the same defense now, Frank, for how many years? It's worked. I just think it's time for probably a change in Vegas.
Yeah, I could see that.
Retooling of their blue line. Quickly, when I look at some of the other names on the list, of course, you can go to dailyfaceoff.com to see all of them. The one that I found interesting, you had him at number 19 at 4.6 million is, and I thought he might have been an option for teams last year at the deadline, but Jamie Oleksiak, for a lot of reasons, Frank, I think could be highly sought after, but it might not even be until during the regular season. But I think it's almost a foregone conclusion he's getting dealt.
Well, let's see what the thought process is for Jason Botterill. We've got a new guy running it. So I don't know. I'm not willing to talk in any foregone conclusions. I think it makes sense. I think when you're talking about a 32-year-old with 1 year left on his deal, that you're trying to be a team that takes a step forward to being competitive, re-signing a guy to start a deal at 33 doesn't make sense when there's a ton of value on the market to get him. So I think the fun part for Seattle, the fun part for So Seattle with Oleksiak, Calgary with Rasmus Andersson. Some of these guys, like there's no, again, poor metaphor on my part, but there's no gun to their head.
No.
Their value isn't going to be any worse in March than it is right now. And in fact, in Andersson's case, the stock might rise because he scored double-digit goals, 11 last year, and he is coming off of, it's an okay year. It wasn't great. A lot of guys had depressed numbers in Calgary because they struggled to score. That there's no harm in saying, hey, we know that we're not extending you. We didn't get exactly what we were looking for. We thought was a good price. In the meantime, especially for those two teams, we can have them support our group for the first 5 months of the year and then make a trade at the deadline that we still get the value and we squeezed almost every last drop out of a guy that we're not going to be keeping. I think there's no rush. They've got the luxury of time here that no one is saying, hey, you got to do this by July 17th or else. There's no reason to.
No, that's fair. Totally fair. Well, I think the summer could be interesting with free agents. Obviously, who lands the free agent could impact the trade market. But a lot of times, Frank, sometimes we see the trades happen at the draft before free agency. So we'll probably see a little bit of both.
I think we'll see some more before then. Tyler was talking, and great time to bring in Tyler. He was talking, he did the math on yesterday's Daily Faceoff Live. He said there were four trades between now and the draft?
Yeah, last year before the cup was handed out, we had 5 deals. 3 of them were like minor, but 2 of them were the Markstrom deal going to New Jersey, and Dubois for Kemper happened during the cup final as well.
Yeah, so there's stuff happening. And look, draft combine this next week in Buffalo. Everyone will be getting to town on Sunday. It's going to start to heat up. So trade targets board was well timed to really begin that discussion. And I've got about 10 other guys that were in consideration for the first one that got more work to do to suss out as to whether or not they should authentically be on it.
That was actually going to be my first buy or sell question, Frank, was will we see a significant trade before the cup final? But I guess we can get into buy or sell, as always, brought to you by our friends at Bet365, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Whether it's game props, player props, totals, money line, you can even bet on futures, of course. And with the Stanley Cup final looming, they should have some fresh futures up potentially as early as this weekend. Download the app, get in on the game at Bet365. We'll move off the one about a trade before the cup final, I suppose. One of the names in the top 5 you guys didn't touch on in the opening was Chris Kreider. Buy or sell on the Rangers being able to move him without any salary retention, Gregor? Still had 20 goals last year, 22 goals or whatever.
Yeah, 2 years left at 6.5. I'd be surprised if you can move him without any retention. Very surprised. So I will sell.
I'm going to buy. First off, we've got a proven track record from Chris Drury that he's able to unload players whose contracts don't look great and not have to retain. He just did it with Jacob Trouba. He previously did it with Barclay Goodrow. It's possible. And not only that, given what Chris Kreider went through last year, that very public memo, he dealt with a bout of vertigo for a while and had a busted hand that he played through for the last month of the season that may have required surgery. The fact that he still got to 22 goals, like $6.5 million is not outrageous. To think that he could score 35 next year, I would take that bet. I would, particularly in new surroundings, wants to prove himself, and the term isn't insanely long. I am buying on Chris Kreider to trade for, to get on my team. I think he's a dog in a good way, and I want him.
I did have one. I wrote most of my questions about the guys a little bit lower on the board. I was like, there's no way they talk about Jamie Oleksiak in the first 20 minutes of the pod. And then you guys go and talk about Jamie Oleksiak. But my question was going to be buy or sell. Oleksiak is not the only player the Kraken move off their roster this summer. Like, you look at the draft next year, the top 5, according to Ellis, is loaded with legitimate star level prospects. I think the Kraken should maybe try to make sure they get in that bottom 5. Just be bad for 1 year. But Frank, buy or sell that Oleksiak's not the only big piece the Kraken move.
I'm with you. I think they should be engaging in conversations about Jaden Schwartz and Andre Burakovsky and Jordan Eberle. And I don't care if he's the captain. Like, I would be pursuing every possible avenue I could to accumulate as much as I can for guys that you know that when you get to where you want to get to will not be part of the equation.
Greg's, you buying or selling on the Kraken, selling off more
Oh,
than
buddy. If I could go Fred Flintstone, bad, I'd be buying all day long here, man. I think Seattle's got to make some significant changes to their roster. So I'd be looking, and I think if their GM doesn't make multiple moves, I think it's been a failed summer.
Yeah, I mean, again, you look at some of the, like, you would get a haul for, look at someone like Vince Dunn. Like, I know he's 28 years old and a really good defenseman, but like, you would have a team paying a lot for the last 2 years of Vince Dunn, and like, just bottom out for 2 years, get a legitimate star, do this the right way. It doesn't have to be a 10-year rebuild. But the next one I had a question about, the goaltending market on the free agent front is wildly thin. It's basically Jake Allen and then a bunch of question marks. But on the trade market, Frank, you had Gibson, you had Merzlikins, then you had Demko, and I think we'd all agree he's probably the guy with the highest ceiling of the bunch. Greg's, it's your turn to go first. Buy or sell on Demko getting moved out of Vancouver this summer?
I'm gonna sell, man. Like, what? They got to try to keep Quinn Hughes happy, don't they? Like, you're getting rid of everybody. Now you get rid of your goalie. Like, Sheloff's isn't the answer there. Not sure. I don't mind Lankinen, but I'm not sold yet. Like, I got now my. I guess I should preface that by saying my one concern is Demko going to be healthy again? So what am I trading him for? If I could trade him for another goalie, I'd actually probably consider it. But, and it is the Canucks. They're not afraid to make trades. But for an organization that's trying to get some stability, Demko, when he's healthy, plays really well. You never hear any issues with him as far as, teammate, personality, all that stuff. It's just he's healthy. So I'm still going to sell because I think they got to try to find some continuity.
How did you frame the question again?
I just said buy or sell. Thatcher Demko gets moved.
Well, he's on my trade board, so I got to say buy. Like, I think you hit the nail on the head, though. Greg's like, is he healthy? And more to the point, the question really is, are you extending him? Because if you're not extending him, goalies almost never get moved in season. So if you're not extending him, you got to do it now, or you're losing the asset for nothing. So are you extending him because you believe that he's healthy and because you believe that because he's healthy, he can get back to the level of Vezina caliber goalie finalist that he was previously? Those are a lot of asks. Plus, you signed Lankinen to a 5-year deal. You've made a massive commitment. Lankinen's now your guy. He's your 1B. So you've got one part of your tandem in place. Go out and find a guy to play in tandem with Lankinen. If you can cash in on Demko, do so. And if not, you're signing him, but it's only because you've made a very clear determination. And by the way, going to be due a massive raise if he is all those things. All of a sudden, then you're talking about committing 12, 13, $15 million, whatever it ends up being. Probably reach at 15, but a lot of money in goaltending. This is significant. It's not about Quinn Hughes. It's not about making anyone happy. It's what's the long-term prospect for our net. You're right. Shelovs is not the guy. Trust eroded this year with his start to the season, which was very poor. And he's playing well in the Calder Cup playoffs now, but that's not the same animal. No. So that is, I think it's a really big decision for Vancouver to make. And we didn't even touch on the idea that does Demko, he said all the right things, but saying all the right things and signing a long-term deal to stay are not the same thing.
Yeah. Last one I got for you guys. It's a bit of a blend of playoffs and free agency. And listen, this conversation has been going on for a while. But the other day when I saw it floated out, could Sam Bennett get $10 million? I know a thing or two about drinking during the playoffs. I don't know how much I'd have to drink to want to give Sam Bennett $10 million. Frank, is there a team out there that you think would buy $10 million Sam Bennett?
I just don't think one that's going to be successful. And I think that's ultimately what it comes back to is Sam Bennett is at his absolute best and is a force in the postseason where there's no cap. But I don't know that Sam Bennett, career year 50-point Sam Bennett, A, is going to duplicate that on a regular basis, and B, he doesn't get you into the playoffs. You need someone else to get you into the playoffs, and then Sam Bennett takes over. So to spend, when it does count in the regular season, 10 on Sam Bennett, I just don't know. Look, player acquisition, hard to come by these guys. I get all those things. This is purely my opinion, but if I'm in a management position, I'm holding my nose going 7 times 7.5. That's my max.
Greg's, any world where you see someone buying $10 million?
First of all, who said 10 million? Was it like a Twitter rumor? Let's be honest.
It started with Biz. Biz said somewhere between 10 and 11. And
I love Biz.
Yeah.
I love Biz, but it's fun, and it's no offense, Biz. To use your words, it's fucking stupid. Okay, let's call a spade here. This guy has a career high 51 points, Biz. This guy plays 16 minutes a night in the playoffs. I love Sam Bennett. Would I take him on my team? 1,000%. I'd want him. He's a $7 million player. That's what he is, right? And that's probably still pretty high.
That's rich. I said 7.5, and I'm holding my nose.
Now, Biz knows how to fire people up, but let's be real here. That is a terrible number. No one's even talking about it. It's going to be, is Sam Bennett going to sign for 7 or 7.5? And do I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to try to get Sam Bennett? 100%. I think the Florida Panthers are going to try to re-sign Sam Bennett. I think those are going to be his first two options. And I think there might be his, 1, 2, and maybe his only ones. But he's not getting 10 mil. Give me a break. But I could see him at, 7.5 is where he is. I think people have to be realistic. Like and I love him at the Four Nations. I think he's a player who fits. He can play with great players. He's a big gamer because he's physical and strong. I still laugh at him when that press conference that he's doing the press conference and Paul Maurice is at the back of someone says, any more questions? And Maurice wants the press conference, hurry up. He's like, no. And Bennett chuckles, but he doesn't even open his mouth. He's like, I'm like, this guy's a certified psycho in a good way. Like, I want him on my team, but he looks like a serial killer. He's got he's got his head down low. He's just staring at you like, I am going to beat the living hell out of you. And that's how he plays. I love him. But 7 mil, I still think that's a great payday for him. And he can help your team as long as you have other really high-end productive guys, because he's not a big productive player, and that's okay.
Yeah. All right, boys. One other thing, too. There's nothing I love more than when you guys fight about Erik Karlsson. It's just, we're due for a good Erik Karlsson back and forth between you guys like once every 3 months. So I'm happy we slid in one more there. But that is a wrap on all the buy or sell questions I have, brought to you by Bet365.
Frankie loves Karlsson, but I love skill, but I don't know, man. He's almost too nonchalant even for me. A few other notes, Frank. We'll get to the playoffs. The breaking story in the playoffs that Zach Hyman is done for the year. He requires surgery, will not play. That's a huge blow. Now, we haven't heard what, and you see that play, and I know people, hey, it's the playoffs and every fans are freaking out. Like, it's a right wrist. I think it is. It's awful. Whatever, it's shoulder surgery, either one. But we don't know yet about Reinhart. Both teams could be without, their one of their best wingers if they both get through the conference finals here. But that's a huge blow for the Oilers. And they did get the win, so now they're up 3-1. All the conference finals in the NBA and the NHL are 3-1. But what do you make of this Hyman loss for the Oilers?
It's big. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And look, I had mentioned, I think on Monday's pod, the idea that things kind of seem to be turning the West direction in terms of whoever came out of it, just because Florida appeared to be so banged up. And then you see Reinhart on the ice again. You see Mikkola on the ice again. And yeah, Tkachuk is banged up, but he's still playing. That it's like, well, don't count those chickens before they hatch either. No guarantee that those guys are going to be out or down for long. And so that matters. And so now you take Hyman off the board for Edmonton, who appears very likely, as we're hurtling toward a Stanley Cup final rematch in back-to-back years, that we're like, that's a material change. Like Hyman has not just been a significant contributor on the offensive front, but dude's been an animal hitting guys and playing physical. And I've said many times that Zach Hyman is the NHL's best press player in the league, the best forechecker, pure forechecker out there, and hounding pucks and making things happen. You take that out and you're going to feel the hurt. There's just no other way to look at it.
Yes. Trent Frederick, who actually is more comfortable playing right wing than left wing, he might get a look. Kapanen might get a look. I'm interested to see what Chris Knobloch does to bring in, because you got three options. You can bring in Jeff Skinner as a left winger and you move Frederick to the right side and away you go. You could bring in Ekholm for the first game, Frank, because I know game 5 was always kind of the target date for him to return. Game 5 is tomorrow. We'll see. He's really close. They could go 11-7 now. Connor Brown's not going to be ready for game 5. I don't think he's ready for game 6, but he would return for a Stanley Cup final if the orders get there. So there's an option. But the other option, Frank, and I know Chris Knobloch is not afraid to think outside the box. Noah Philp. The orders are getting murdered in the faceoff circle. It's the only area Dallas is dominating. Edmonton's 41% in the draw. Philp's a big, and Knobloch loves big guys who can skate and they're physical. Philp can skate. He's big body, can play down low. He can play right wing. And you're like, hey, maybe I don't want him to take the responsibility of all the center stuff, but he can help us on faceoffs, right? Because he can. I know people say, well, Derek Ryan can't. Derek Ryan can't play 5-on-5. So you're not going to dress a guy just to win a few faceoffs. Philp could play there. So I think those are the options. I'm kind of curious to see what he does.
Yeah, I'm with you. Do you think Derek Ryan's an option?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, I think it's Skinner, Ekholm, or Philp. And then when Connor Brown comes back, he would jump in ahead of both Philp and Skinner. So now they could keep them in, because if you go 11-7, then you could have Brown and one of those other guys too, if possible. So we'll see. But I look at Dallas and, hey, man, you look at this series, it's come down to Stuart Skinner makes more big saves right now. Like that first period again, Dallas was the better team in the first period and they couldn't beat Stuart Skinner. And then after that, Edmonton locked it down and didn't give up very much.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Dallas wins game 5? Who has the better chance to win game 5? Carolina or Dallas?
Yeah, both at home. That's a really good question. God. Well, my gut would say Dallas, I think. But here's the thing. They can't score, Frank. And really, and I wrote it before the series, and everybody
it's not revisionist history. You went through all the numbers on the depth and how their depth is not scoring. If you want a fun little stat, and we haven't talked about this at all, but who has more goals in the conference final? Logan Stankoven or Mikko Rantanen?
Yeah.
It's Logan Stankoven.
Yes. No, hey, Rantanen, he had an unreal, he had those big games where he had 5 and 3 points in the
17 points in 5 games. But
in 5 games, and then
he's
in
got
his last
4 in the 12 since then.
Yeah.
If I'm
he's
my
got
math is correct.
In his last 7 games, Frank, since game 3 against Winnipeg, he has a total of no goals and 3 assists in the last 7 games. Like that's just, you're not going to win. And so he's not scoring, and he was the only guy scoring 5-on-5. And now they got a whole lot of nothing going 5-on-5. In the series against Edmonton, they have 3 goals 5-on-5, and Tyler Seguin has 2 of them.
So for a lot of the reasons you mentioned, I think Carolina has the better chance to win game 5.
Probably right.
It's probably too little too late, but I felt like watching game 4, like they actually kind of unlocked something and figured out how to manage Florida a little bit better. Again, I think part of what Florida ran into in game 4 is that they approached it probably from a body language and compete standpoint, like a regular season game in December, thinking, hey, we're on home ice. We're going for the sweep. Maybe the Canes are going to roll over. They appear to be going through the motions a tad bit, which may sound a little bit critical to them, but I think Carolina at the same time finally asserted their will a little bit in the series, that it's probably, again, too late. You can't overcome that, or very difficult to, but maybe that's enough to force a game 6 back on home ice, or they're on home ice, but force game 6 back in Florida, excuse me.
Yeah, no. Well, I give you Carolina. They're at home. To lose 3 in a row at home would be hard. Although Vegas did it, I guess, in the last round, so it is definitely possible. Yeah, you might have me convinced now that maybe it is Carolina. Edmonton, they continue to rally. Like Zach Hyman basically didn't play the whole game and they still won, right? Like he actually was only on the ice for 3 minutes in that game. And it is a big loss, though. I agree with you on the forecheck. Like Hyman had 111 hits, Frank. 111 hits in 14 games in 3 minutes.
It's more than he had in the regular season, isn't it?
Dude.
Didn't he have 106 in the regular season?
No, he had like 80 hits in the regular season.
Oh. Well, more to the point.
Yeah.
And I also think this, again, I'm a big body language believer. I think Dallas looked a little bit defeated in game 4.
Yeah, I could see it. That's fair. Well, and here's the thing, that the Oilers are up 3-1 and their 2 superstars continue to produce, right? Like they get points, but Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is maybe being their best forward in the series. And he's the first player in 37 years to start a conference final with 4 consecutive multi-point games. He has 9 points, 2 in all of them, and then 3 in 1. It's a short list of guys who've ever done that. He's the only Oiler outside of Gretzky. Gretzky's the only Oiler to have more points in the first 4 games. He's had 12 and 10 a few times. But, man, Nugent-Hopkins is playing unreal. Like that play on the Corey Perry goal was all Nugent-Hopkins. Perry just had to have it deflect off his stick and go in the net. Like Stuart Skinner said, he goes, I think this is the best hockey he's ever played. He's been unreal for Edmonton. And it just continues the trend at Edmonton, like their top guys.
Yep.
So Connor McDavid in the regular season.
So here's the stat. I've got this right here in front of me. Last year, conference final against Dallas, obviously 6 games.
Yeah.
McDavid had 10 points in 6 games. Draisaitl had 4 and Nugent-Hopkins had 4. This time around, McDavid has 7, but Draisaitl has 7 and Nugent-Hopkins has 9, and it's only in 5 games.
Yeah. Well, Draisaitl's healthy this year, right? That's a big difference.
Right, but it's not an outside possibility that McDavid and Draisaitl both get to 10 points this time around, or there's 3 guys that get to 10 points in one series.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the thing about the Oilers is if you look at their big guns, and because I know in Toronto, everybody talks about, hey, your best guy's got to be better. Well, McDavid's career regular season is 1.52 points per game. In the playoffs, it's 1.58. Draisaitl's 1.2 in the regular season, 1.47 in the playoffs. Nugent-Hopkins, 0.78 in the regular season, 0.89 in the playoffs. And then Evan Bouchard, who's got the greatest improvement in NHL history, is 0.69 in the regular season and 1.10 in the playoffs. So their big guys show up. And this year, though, because their power play only has 11 goals, because they don't get many power play chances, like they're still 29% in the power play. They just don't get many chances. Their 5-on-5 depth scoring across the board is the bigger story. And McDavid, like everyone's like, yeah, McDavid had 1.68 points per game last year, Frank. He's at 1.6 this year. And people are like, well, he's playing okay. It's funny just because everybody else is producing in Edmonton. It's kind of overshadowing a guy having another unreal playoff.
Yep.
What did you make of the Florida injuries? Like they miss Mikko Mikkola, man, a lot in game 4.
Yeah, but again, the fact that him and Reinhart are skating, like I would imagine that they're game for a cup final, provided they get there.
Yeah. So, but you don't expect them to play tonight.
I can't rule it out. I wouldn't expect it, but I can't rule it out.
But
I'm not taking any chances with this big of a lead in the series either.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But he's been really good for them on the back end, like really good.
He's had moments where he's looked like Bobby Orr, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? And he's got a very complete game. So I think the big thing that I've wondered is, as he had stops in St. Louis and the Rangers, why didn't they get the same thing out of him? Is it purely confidence? Is it the players he's playing with? Is it structure? Is it maybe just individual growth and development? Like, how is it that a player at this stage of his career just kind of, boom, here it is?
It is a great question. And I think it's probably a combination of everything, Frank. You get into a little bit better of a situation, and you're feeling more confident. You also like now. Remember when people said, "What's the magic number for defenseman, Frank?" Oh, 300 games. Well, guess what? He only played 328 after playing 76 this year. So maybe it was a little bit of him just finding his way as a guy, a little bit of still a later developer coming from Europe, right? Like he never played more than 50 games in any season until he got to Florida. So maybe that's as much of a reason more than anything else.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that's interestingly been through a lot. Why now?
Yeah. Big mobile defenseman, Frank. If you're an organization, patience. That would be always the one thing with big mobile defensemen. Patience.
But he didn't even look good in New York either. Like, I just don't
he didn't get much time there in New York. Like, he wasn't in the role in New York that he is here, right? And he only played, 30 games in New York, I think it was.
Yeah.
But no, he's good. It's
eligible for an extension this summer.
Well, they got some bigger fish to fry first, but what about Aaron Ekblad? Quickly, what do you think his chances are staying in Florida?
I think pretty small. I think he's a guy that is ripe to be well paid and probably overpaid based on the Stanley Cup success elsewhere. I just think when you look at his impact, and he's been really good in the playoffs. Like, I'm not taking anything away from him whatsoever, but I think his impact as a whole over the last 2 to 3 years has dropped significantly in terms of his contribution to team success.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get those guys that are top pairing eligible players.
And Reinhardt, Frank, as I watch, as we speak, he's on the ice for the morning skate in Florida.
Yeah, I said, can't rule him out. I would not be taking any chances at all. Saying 3-1, wake me up when it's 3-2, and then I'm putting him back in if he's close.
Yeah, well, both of these series end early. We could have an earlier start to the Stanley Cup Finals, but if one of them goes to Game 6, then we're probably going to have a repeat of last year, like a week between conference final and the Cup.
Looking at June 7th, this is what they've been talking about, is June 7th start if either one of these extends to Game 6, and June 4th if they both end in 5. So
there you go. Plan ahead, which means if they start on the 4th, the latest it would be is the 20th. If they start on the 7th, the latest the Cup would be handed out is the 23rd. That's if it goes to 7 games, which doesn't give you a ton of time to prepare for the for everything in the.
And as Bill Zito said last summer, though, it's the best problem to have.
Oh God, yeah. Every team would rather be in this situation. That's where, hey, assistant GMs, you guys, we can do 2 things at once, right?
What are you doing on game days? What are you doing on days like today? Like, this is all off-season prep, amateur scouting, pro scouting, free agents, whatever it is. Just because the games are going on doesn't mean the rest of your day you should be not working.
No, it's very true. They're not reporters, Frank. They got full-time jobs. Just kidding. Got to work pretty hard. Frankie, have yourself a wonderful weekend. And we'll be back to our regular Monday pod here on the DFO Rundown, as always, brought to you by Bet365.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.